Hello, everybody. Welcome to December. I am Raymond Camden, the host of Code Break. I am very happy if you are joining me today, or even if you're watching this live. That's totally fine too. As always, I ask people to please give me a shout out in the comments just so I know I'm not speaking into the void, so to speak. I apologize for the scheduling of the show. November was incredibly busy, and then we had Thanksgiving, and December is also incredibly busy. I somehow ended up with 5 different streams and presentations that I'm doing this month. This is one of them. So in less than an hour, I'll have one done at least, which is something. Um, but what I realized is that the scheduling typically would go like this. I would do a thing, and then like a couple days later, I'd reach out to Brian and say, "Hey, let's schedule for so and so date." And sometimes those couple of days ended up being way more than I anticipated, and just that's the way time goes. So, what my plan is for next year uh, is to schedule out 3 or 4 at a time. That way I'm not getting hit by just random things I forgot about or just forgetting the schedule one because time goes so darn fast. I do have one more scheduled for this month. I think that we're just gonna have fun um, and just play. We'll see. Uh, January, I can say we'll probably only have one session. My wife and I are going on a cruise. Yes, our first cruise in the first half of the month. So that's a long way of saying that January scheduling will start to get better because I'll put more out there at a time, but we may start a little bit late in the month as well. So uh, I think that's all the metadata I have. Um, Next year is also the year that I will fix the reflection in my glasses. It probably doesn't bug most of y'all, but whenever I see it, it's like, oh my god, it's so much. I'm also doing this, and I'm not sure if you can hear it or not. I'm doing some lo-fi background music. My buddy Todd Sharp, his incredibly cool stream, he's been doing that for a while, and I kind of dig it. It just kind of makes it relax. So if y'all can hear it, great. If you can't hear it, let me know. I'll crank it up a little bit. If it's too loud, let me know as well. If you hate it and would rather I play some industrial music instead, yeah, just let me know. I'm sure I can queue up some Ministry or something like that. So with that out of the way, let's switch to the screen share. And I always move this little thing over here, home saw like that, and then add to the stage, home saw like that. And first and foremost, shout out to our sponsor. I've only been doing this for 1 year. This was the 18th code break, by the way. But for a couple months now, Jam has been sponsoring, and I really appreciate them. And they are a free screen recording browser extension that auto includes DevTools and every recording, and just makes it a heck of a lot easier for your non-technical people to send you issues and stuff like that, especially in this remote world where you can't just go to the desk and look and see what's going on. So again, jam.dev, they are the sponsor for the show. Please check them out and thank them for sponsoring it. Last week, and hopefully you came here last week as well, but if not, that's okay. Last week, I talked about the Jamstack, which is fancy way of just saying dynamic application server on my local environment that outputs to static flat files. And I spoke specifically about a tool called Eleventy. Eleventy is an open source Node.js based Jamstack static site generator. It was very long-winded. But they are the tool that I use from my blog. They are the tool that I recommend for anyone who is interested in this idea, who likes the idea of having minimal dependencies and production. The less things you have running, the less things that can break. Eleventy is one of many options out there, but it is incredibly lightweight. It is incredibly flexible. It has zero impact on your output. And by that, what I mean is it is not forcing you to use JavaScript. It's not forcing you to create a single page application. It just takes your input, whatever you want, and outputs whatever you want. And I love that flexibility. I love that ability to just say, I need to do something kind of stupid. Will Eleventy let me do it? Yes, they will. It won't stop me. And I just really appreciate that. So, in the last session, we talked about building a blog. I love that particular example, and in fact, whenever I tend to learn a new language, I like to build a blog. Reason being is, not that I'm building something that I'm going to put in production, but I know what a blog is. I know what the features are. And if I already know what to build and I'm just learning a language, that makes it that much easier. I focus on how do I talk to a database? How do I, create a page, etc. I focus on that and less, oh, what should I build? I don't know. So building a blog in Eleventy is a great example. And my own personal blog runs on Eleventy and it scales really well. I promise I'm not doing this to show off. Maybe, maybe a tiny bit. But so my blog is currently at 6,573 pages, plus, let's say, 10 more miscellaneous things like my about page and my speaking page and stuff like that. So 6,500 pages are generated by Eleventy. It typically takes, I don't have the last build duration, the last build time. It takes less than 5 minutes for my website to be published. And I commit a markdown file, my latest blog post to my GitHub repository. My host, Netlify, takes over. They do it all. And again, within 5 minutes, the site is updated. So it is incredibly performant, works really well, and very, very flexible. And that's what we did. And let's take a quick look at the existing blog. Now, one thing I'll share, let me get back here. Let me get back to my banners real quick. So the code that I'm showing today is up on the GitHub repository that I use for all of my code break shows. The last session, it was in a folder called blog 1. This morning, I just copied it to blog 2 so that we can have a separation between this session and the last session. But if you want the source code that I'm working on, this is where you'll get it. If you're watching live, I probably won't commit until like half hour or so after the show. If you're watching this recording, it darn well better be committed. So let's actually look at the output real quick. And I'm going to show you the flat file output. Make sure it goes to the right browser. Yes, yes, yes. All right, so this is the incredibly not so pretty blog that I made where I have a set of blog posts, and you could see it was a couple weeks ago, the last session, but you click on them and you see content. It's very blog-like. There is a standard layout, and you can see every blog post has when it was published, the title, the text, and so forth. Very, very simple. The code behind this was built in a couple different ways. So first off, I had Liquid. Liquid is a HTML template language that it's one of a couple that Eleventy supports. And it essentially allows me to put logic in my HTML. And in this case, what I've done is I basically said, give me a variable called sorted post. It's based on a collection. I'll talk about the collections in a second. That gives me an array of posts, and I reverse it such that the most recent blog post is first. And that's just kind of typical blog logic, is your most recent post goes on top. And then I just iterate over that array, and for each one, I link to it with the title and date. So how did I get that variable collections.post? Well, Eleventy has this feature where if you use front matter, and that is the stuff on top, and you use a tags variable, The value that's in that tag will put it into a bucket. It'll put it into a collection. So all of my files that are tagged as post, they go into a collection, a bucket, a list called post. And going back to the index page, collections.post is that thing. So whenever I build a new blog post, I just use that same tag and drop it in there, and it automatically gets in there. Some other things that you can do in your front matter, and this is just the text on top, I can specify a layout. Eleventy will look in a includes folder by default, and this time I called it main. Now look for a file, main, and main.liquid. And once again, I have a little bit of HTML and some variables. And because this is a layout file, I can have a variable called content. And Eleventy is just going to take the page rendered HTML, stick it in there between that layout, and render the final HTML. When I first began doing web development, like that was a big deal. Like I can remember having like a 10-page website and the contact us email address changed. So I had to go through all 10 pages, go into footer, change that email address. It was a pain in the butt. But having this layout file means that I don't have to worry about that. The other thing I'll point out, my front matter can have other variables like title and date and such, and that just becomes data. So I can go into a file and output title, just like that, and it'll pick up on that page front matter and use it in the rendered output. Eleventy by default outputs the site, and I went into that folder to kind of show you the output. But if we look at our post, a couple of things to note. See that it defaults to taking the file name, which was third.md, in the post folder, putting it in the post folder, a third folder, and index.html. It gives a slightly nicer URL. So go back to my browser. When you click on third, you see there's no index.html, it's just post/third. You can tweak that. And in fact, go back to my blog and we'll just go into the last blog post. I tweaked my Eleventy blog to have a year, month, day portion in my URL. Reason I did that is that I went to Eleventy after having a blog in WordPress, and before that, a blog in Cold Fusion. So I had a history of URLs that I wanted to keep working for links for Google and so forth. And Eleventy absolutely supported me tweaking that output. And if you go back in here, the title tag, again, this came from the front matter. It was just third, and the rest of the content as well. But big thing to note is that the output of the output of Eleventy is just flat files. Now you can combine this with dynamic stuff. You can have client-side JavaScript that does stuff when you view the page. You can also have serverless functions as well. One typical use case for this would be form processing. So when you go to my blog and you go to the contact thing, I used to have a form, but you could have had a form here where literally you just type stuff in, it goes to a serverless function, and then it emails me directly. That is kind of a common use case and kind of funny because when I first started doing web development, my primary back-end development work was Perl CGI scripts to literally just parse form posts. So you can write a serverless function from that. There's also multiple third-party services out there that for free will let you post to them, and they'll just send you the information in an email. But the point is that I can take these flat files and add whatever dynamicness I may need in there. You can even do e-commerce sites in Jamstack as well by integrating with third-party providers like Stripe, Shopify, etc. But we're not doing all that. We are building a blog. So first thing I'm going to do is get out of that site folder because that's the output. And I want to do some development. And first thing I want to do is run 11D serve. And this essentially runs Eleventy and looks for file changes. So it went to localhost 8081. We will go back here to our preview 8081, and we should see these. Oh, let me try localhost 8081. There we go. So this is dynamic. It's kind of acting like a PHP, Node.js, Cold Fusion system, etc. If I were to go ahead and create, let me close the site so I don't get confused. If I make a new blog post, and we'll call it fourth.md because I am not very creative. We'll copy from third, paste it in. We'll call this post, comma, the fourth. And this was written on December 5th. And yes, I did have to look it up. It is my youngest son's, my youngest kid's birthday today. And I still had to look at the date to make sure that I was getting it right. So we will say lorem ipsum. I do want this post to be a little bit longer just to make it a little bit more interesting, and like that. So again, this is live. If I go back to my browser, I could see it showed up immediately. I can click, I can go back, and there it is. And if I look into my output folder, I can actually see under post, it's there. So that was all kind of automated. So let's start iterating on this a bit. And one of the first things I want to do, and I'm doing this on purpose because A, it's a good change, and B, it does show not an issue with Eleventy, not at all. It does show something that you typically run into pretty early on. So if I look at my layout file in my includes folder, I could see I have some inline CSS. And I really want to make that external. So we'll say link rel equals style sheet, and href will be site.css. Not the best name, but you get it. And we will just comment this out. By the way, Liquid actually has a comment directive that removes it from the output. As you hopefully know, HTML comment is still visible in view source, but this will actually make it not render out at all. So I've removed this, and I'm just going to add a file. I'm going to add what I call it, site.css. And I'm going to copy and paste what I had. A nice pink background with the margins and all that, and yada yada. Get rid of the tabbing. And save it. And let's see how well it worked. It did not. It broke. So the first thing you do, obviously, is you go into DevTools. Wow, my DevTools are really big. Go into the network and just reload and see what's happening. It says, oh, site.css is a 404. So I'm going to go back to my file system. Remember, underscore site is the output. And I could see that, oh, it did not copy over site.css. Why didn't it do that? Well, it turns out this is better. Sorry, I apologize. Like my comments are way over here. So if I keep doing that, it's because of that. One day I'm gonna get very large widescreen monitor where it's all in front of me. I could look a little bit closer, but yes, better late than never. Total brain fart here. So this is expected because Eleventy's default behavior is if I see a file that I don't recognize, I'm going to ignore it. And in fact, I have a notes.txt file here, which is just a little preview there for a second. That's like what I want to do. That file was ignored by Eleventy and wasn't in the output. And that's good. Like you may have stuff that you don't want in your site. You want to make maybe notes or things to change and so forth. But so the question, how do we actually make this work? Well, we are going to go to the docs and we are going to look at pass-through copy. There we go, pass-through file copy. So This is basically saying I need Eleventy to copy stuff that it doesn't work with. Like just find it, copy it, dump it out. To do this, we have to configure Eleventy, and this is the first time we've done this. So we are going to actually, let's go back to configuration. I thought it was earlier in the docs. Let me see where it is in the docs. Configuration, yeah, not on this page itself. Where is it in the navigation? Configuration shapes. Oh, okay, they renamed it. So you create a file by default called eleventyconfig.js and you drop it in your root. So I'm going to do that. Drop it, comme ça, like that. And this is eleventyconfig.js and drop it in here. And just for the heck of it, console.log, I'm doing stuff. Now I'm currently using Eleventy serve. It picks up on content changes. So like when I add markdown files and edit my liquid files, stuff like that, it doesn't automatically pick up on the config being added because that's kind of special. So I'm gonna go to my command line. I'm gonna kill Eleventy. I'm gonna restart it, and it should restart. Unexpected. It's yeah. I know this. I'm not doing. The reason this is happening is that I need my project to support ESM, and I know how to do that. Yeah, package.json type equals mantra. All right, so let me just npm init real quick. Give me a blank package.json. Got to do the force yes. And I'm just going to do type equals module. I do this pretty often. So now my Eleventy config should work, even though it's not doing anything. But I do have a console message. I'm doing stuff. So at this point, I could start really, really tweaking Eleventy. And there's a crap ton of options. But the specific one I want is the one that we were just at. So one page down in the docs, and that is pass-through file copy. And again, the idea is that Eleventy is going to ignore stuff it doesn't know. So I need to tell it, hey, I want you to copy these files. So there are a couple of different options you could use here. You can do a file, you can do a directory, you can do a glob. I think what I'm going to do is say, I'm going to make a folder called asset. Like that. And you know what? I want anything in assets, ASSETS. Yeah, it's one T. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm an English major. I'm going to drop my CSS in there. All right. And then I'm going to tell Eleventy and say, hey, I want you to copy this entire folder. Just like that. And we're going to say assets. Now, what's going to happen is that it's going to copy it as a folder. So you see, let me make that bigger before Scott tells me to, but he's always right about this. In my site output over here, I do have my assets folder, so it worked immediately. But if you remember in my layout, which was right here, I had /sites. You can tweak it such that a folder gets copied to root. You can get fancy in terms of how you copy from a subdirectory to the output directory. I don't want to get fancy, and I'm fine just saying href equals assets site.css. We'll get rid of this comment because we've already copied the stuff. And in theory, this is running. Go back to my site. I've got CSS. It worked, and it's almost done. One thing I'll point out though is that if you do tweak the CSS, let's make that margin like stupid big, 500 px. It does not upload. It doesn't automatically reload. Because Eleventy has been told, like, okay, just copy this stuff over, but it's not watching for CSS file changes. It doesn't it knows now to copy it, but it doesn't know enough to actually, watch for changes like that. And I wasn't going to show that, but this is a live stream, right? We can do things live. Um, this is all about the tweaks. Emulate pass-through copy during serve. And we don't want that. What we want is it for to is it for to is for me to change the watch behavior. And you know what? We'll use Eleventy search. Hopefully watch isn't too vague. And boom, there it is. On the first example, in this case, it's not CSS, but SAS CSS. But I can basically say add a watch target. So I'm gonna go back to my Eleventy config and say add watch target. By the way, this is also something that could be tweaked at the command line. I'm just gonna say watch assets. In theory, that should do it. Again, no, I do have to rerun Eleventy. All right, so make sure it's still awake. Of course, my margins now are horribly dumb. But if I fix it, because I'm telling it to watch, I should see it in the output as well. Save. And then, yeah, bam, it did copy it. File change. Let's see, did it copy it? It did. So combination of two things. One, telling Eleventy to copy that folder. In this case, everything in there. And I could be more specific. I could do file types, etc. But I know for my use case, I'm going to put CSS, JavaScript, images, whatever in there. And I'm telling Eleventy to watch it. And this is all in the config file. And again, you could do like 1,000 different things in here, but that's all I'm doing for right now. Nice and simple. And also note that it changes in here. I do need to kill the Eleventy server and restart it to get it running. Whew. All right, so that was easy for the most part. So let's do the next thing. Let's do some date formatting. And what do I mean by that? If we go into here, we could see that the dates that I did as just year, month, day, it's being rendered out, nicely. Wednesday, December 4th. I thought I had done the 5th. Oh, that's a time zone issue. I'm not going to touch that right now. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to add a time. That's something else that I don't want to get into, but that should say the 5th now. Cool. So I like that it's a bit more verbose, but it's way too verbose. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to add some basic date formatting to Eleventy. And the way we're going to do that is we are going to add a filter. And a filter is just a fancy way of saying, I want some custom logic that I can use in my templates that does stuff. And their documentation is pretty good on this. So in Liquid, if you do a pipe, it takes the variable, in this case name, and it passes it to the filter. And the filter is just JavaScript code. Like, that's it. Yeah, the only thing you have to really think about is if it's async or not. So we can add logic to write our own date formatting using Eleventy config add filter. So let's do that. And let's close some stuff up here so it's a little bit easier to read. We will make a filter called nice date. Like this. And I'm pretty sure I can use an arrow function like that. Nice date, spell it correctly. And just to see it working, I will say this will work soon. Soon. So I added a filter. Again, I'm going to stop and restart Eleventy. And let's use it in our home page. Where we render the date, I'm going to do a filter for nice date. And then in theory, if we go back to our output, we should see this will work soon. Very, very cool. Very simple. So let's actually make it work. I'm going to use INTL for that. INTL is a baked in platform specific way to do date, time, number formatting, etc. New INTL date, time, format. Take the defaults, format the. We're going to tweak those defaults in a minute, but that should be it. Again, I'm pretty sure I have to restart. Oh, I didn't. Okay, well, take this with a grain of salt. I think the way that Eleventy config gets reloaded is that there are some changes you have to kill the server and some you don't. I am totally kind of taking the easy way out of that. But you notice in that case, I did not have to restart. But there you go. I have better dates. And if I wanted to, let's go into the MDN docs, INTL date time format. If we wanted it to look a little bit different, make it a little bit longer, let's go ahead and default to ENUS, which is, as the author, that's my particular format, or my date format. And let's do date style long. I think that's a little bit better. And we go back and go back. And yeah, I like that. I like December 5th. And if I wanted to, because INTL supports it, I could do the day of the week. I'm not doing time formatting, and that's arbitrary, but in my opinion, I care a lot about when you wrote your blog posts because it may be out of date. And in fact, on my blog, I actually do like a special thing for old blog posts. Let me show you that real quick. We'll look up Cold Fusion stuff. And I have, let's go back to 2020. And you see, I even in my UI, I like call out, hey, this post is old. So yes, I care about when a blog post is written. I don't care about what time. I can't imagine carrying that. Oh, I wrote this yesterday, but it was 2 p.m. So arbitrarily, I'm not doing that. When you go into the blog posts, we still have that. So I'm going to go into my post layout because all the posts are using a layout as well. They just happen to change to the main site layout. I'll add that filter. Nice date. And we go back and boom, like so. And I think you could hypothetically say, I want a format for the homepage, like when I'm doing a list of blog posts, and I want a different format for when I'm on the blog post itself. So you could have multiple filters. Your filters can even take arguments. Let's see. I know there's a way to do. I'm just wondering if they have it if they have it documented. I think you would have to actually look at the Liquid.js. Instead of saying that, let's look at this. Liquid.js filter arguments. And Bing, this is a browser profile for presenting. I need to at some point change it to Google. Yeah, this is an example right here. So to pass arguments, you have the name of the filter, then colon, and then, things after that. So I could do that in my Eleventy file. I could have one date filter that has arguments for how verbose it wants to be and tweak stuff. I can go crazy with this. I'm not going to go crazy because why do that? So we've added nicer dates, and all I did was add that filter to my Eleventy config. Not difficult at all. Looking at my notes, this is a great time to introduce you to something else Eleventy does. So I mentioned that my blog posts have this front matter on top, which is data. Eleventy picks up on a couple of them, like layout. It picks up on tags. It does things with it. But in general, it's just pure data. I could add whatever I want to on here. Eleventy also has a concept of data at the site level, and it has even more levels, but we can do it at the site level. And that's useful for things like, maybe I want a contact email address that's used in multiple places and it's site wide. I could define that one time. And the way that this is done is I'm going to use a particular folder called underscore data. I'm going to drop a file in here. I'm going to drop a file called site.json, just for the heck of it. And we'll say, the kind of things I want to have like as site-wide variables, the name of the blog, Ray's Cool Cat Blog, and contact email will be Raymond Camden. You know what? Let's use my old email address, rcamden@gmail.com, since apparently everybody in the world uses it. My friends know that for years now. I've had this guy, Roger Camden, up in Nebraska, I think, who has used rcamden@gmail, even though it's my email address. I get all kinds of interesting email because of what he signed up for. So anyway, as soon as I do this, Eleventy makes us available as a variable called site. And we can actually go and index, and just for the heck of it, let's look at site. Let's just dump it out. That's on the home page. Go back to the home page, objects, because it's a complex variable. But if I just do site dot, what do I call it? Name? Did I call it name? No, title. Site dot title. And actually, let's say welcome to site dot title. Go back and welcome to Ray's Cool Cat Blog. So what this essentially did was just basically make some data available to all my templates, and for exactly the way that I used it for variables I could imagine using on multiple pages, it makes sense. I could even get fancy and say, if they don't specify a title on the page, pick up from site.title. I could have logic here that basically says if there's no local variable called title, use the site one instead. There's options there. What else could you use it for? Contact email addresses, anything, I guess. You know what? I'll show you mine. GitHub, CF Master, Raymond Camden 2023. Go into my data folder. Again, my blog is way too complex, but yeah, I have even my navigation. I have some links to social stuff. I could dump Twitter because I'm off Twitter now. My bio, etc. Things that I thought would be nice to edit as pure data versus editing in code everywhere. Now, one more cool thing you could do with data is actually use JavaScript files as well. So I'm going to say cats.js, and I always forget the exact syntax. So what we do is we go to the docs and we look at using data, and it is a global data file. And we're just going to copy and paste. I know you have an example of a JavaScript one. Oh yeah, JavaScript data files. So we're just going to do like that. So in here, I have some custom logic. Not really, it's hard coded. But I now have cats being a list of two people, user one and user two. If we go back to index.liquid, and this will probably end up saying object again. We'll just go cats 0. Go back in here, go back to our blog. And why did you not pick up? Did I save? I'm pretty sure I did. Back to the output. Did I say? Yeah, it's there. Cats.js. You know what? Let's kill Eleventy and run it again and see. Yeah, Don't ask me why that wasn't picked up on a reload, but there you go. But so I could have logic here if I were to do something like swappy.dev, the Star Wars API, and say, let's get a list of Star Wars films, base URL. Let's make this asynchronous. Let's go back to where's my cats? Too many files. There we go. All right. Let cat request equals await fetch. And yes, I know I'm not in an async function yet. It should just be films. Let cats equals await cat rec JSON and return cats. And all I gotta do is drop the async in there, and that goes export default async function. I can't believe that actually worked. So now if we look at, let me close some of these files. I am showing cats 0. This should be, how many tabs? This should be not working. Let's do what I would normally do. Console.log cats 0 and see what it is. And undefined. Why is it undefined? Let's just output cats. By the way, do know that my reload's now actually a little bit slower. And there we go, because it's not an array of results, it's under results. Like that. Do know that now Eleventy is running async code, so it's actually going a little bit slower, and that's way too long now. A little bit slower. Let's really, really crawl down. All right. And one thing I'll point out is that it should note right there. See, 99% of the time was this one file, which makes sense because this is doing a network call and doing stuff. But this is a great thing that Eleventy gives you just out of the box, just some benchmarks, some data about what's taking time and so forth. If we go back here, again, it's an object. I think Eleventy has a baked in to JSON filter. Let's just see what that does. If that works. Oh, and it did. There we go. Dumped it out to JSON. So what's kind of cool is that I can actually have dynamic data back in here, but this is only going to run on site build. So locally, it's reloading every time I modify stuff, which right now is just fine. If we look at our output folder, though, look at the index file, it's just that straight dump of JSON data, which is ugly as heck, but you get the idea. And I actually use this in my blog as an example. Look at my data folder. Pretty sure I don't have my key, and yeah, it's in GitHub, of course not. So I include my latest check-ins from Untapped. Untapped is a beer tracking application, and they had an API. They don't document it anymore. It's deprecated, but for now it still works. But when my site is built, it does a network call to Untapped to get the last couple of beers that I've had and puts it on my now page, which you can see as I scroll down. The last one I had was actually with Scott, who's in the audience. That's the last new beer, I should say. I only track the new beers I've tried. And it's actually better than 3. I should have given like a 3.25 or so. But it's an example of data. I'm going to keep this in source, but I'm going to take it out of the actual layout. I'm actually not going to render this because I don't want to right now. Let's take a look at our notes. And we are at 12:45. And I think I have time for one more thing. We may do a third session, but like I said, I think I want my next session to be a bit more lighthearted. Um, let's look at pagination because Eleventy actually does it really darn great. Now we don't have a lot of posts in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go into my post folder and I'm going to just start doing stuff like this. And this is kind of lame, but what I want is a lot of blog posts, at least 15 or so. All right. Now, all these blog posts are going to have the exact same title, the exact same date, and that's okay. You know, it's going to look a little bit ugly, but let us see this running. 17 files. Where's my cat blog? There it is. So we're going to do two things. First, on our homepage, we're going to limit the number of posts to like 5. Normally I would do 10, but I kind of want to make this work. And we're going to do that in code. If I remember, I can do that in Liquid. Let's see if I did it right. No, I did not do it right. Limit 5, undefined filter. Okay. Oh, no, it actually goes here. This is why I have the Liquid docs open normally. Okay, it ran, but did it work? Boom, it worked. All right, so now our homepage is nice and limited to our most recent content. I still want to give people an option or like a way to read everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and say, hey, read all my posts here. And I do know how to do links and non-markdown. Never mind. On the all page. That page won't exist, so we'll make a new page called all.liquid. And we do want it to use the same site layout. So I'm going to copy the front matter, but give it a new title. All the post. And we'll just do H2 everything. Everything. All right. So just to make sure I haven't broken anything, go back here. The link is there. I click it. Boom. So Eleventy has pagination built in, and it has it built in really darn well. So you can literally, in your front matter, say, I want to paginate over a set of data by adding a pagination thing on top. So I'm going to go here, add that in there. My data is collections.post. I always forget if it's plural or not. What did I say? Collections.post. And we'll do a size of 3. Now that's a bit small, but we only have like 14 blog posts. And I want this to be a bit more, kind of clear. So this is going to create data on my page that's automatically paginated. And it's going to create it in a thing called pagination.items. I don't like that, but Eleventy also gives you a way to give it an alias, give it like a nicer name. And that is, where is it? Aliasing right there, alias wonder. We're going to alias this to post. Oops. So essentially, paginate, create a variable called post that represents the current page of data. Now I'm just going to copy and paste from the home page and get rid of my limit because I'm already limiting, and we are going to do it like that. Excuse me. And that should be it. In theory, we should have one page of 3 items, and we do. It is sorted the wrong way, but again, Eleventy has a way to do that in the front matter. I'm pretty sure. I sworn it had one in the front matter. Not going to fix that right now, but instead what I want to show you is that if we look at the output in all, it actually made all the pages for that. So at this point, you have to custom build like your pagination, like you're on page one, have a next page, but don't have a previous because you're on page one. Again, Eleventy has all of this baked in, and we will go to pagination navigation. And what they basically do is they create variables for you that allow you to do things like previous page, next page, etc. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy their pages so you can see it. And we'll get rid of the H2. We don't need that. They're using an ordered list. I don't like that, but that's all right. And we are looping over a variable that Eleventy created, pagination.pages, and all these variables, they're all just baked in there. So for example, pagination.hrefs, that'll be the link. Eleventy knows it. I don't have to worry about it. I could even look at my current URL, which is page.url, and say, hey, if I'm already there, then edit. In this case, it's just adding aria current page. And then output the loop index for the page number, and like that, that's it. If we save it, again, this is all the stuff that Eleventy did. I got my pages. I don't like the ordered list, so we'll get rid of the OL, get rid of that, and we will just do, not LIs, but just a space. Like that. And if I wanted to, I could, pretty sure I could add a bracket between it. I mean, bracket. And we can even say if we're at the end, don't include a bracket. There is a way to do if I'm on the end of a for loop. You know what? That's a Liquid thing. Liquid.js for loop last index. I think it's a built-in thing. For loop index. There's a way to tell if it's the end. And iteration. I know you're in here somewhere. Last. Nope, not that. Ah, there we go. Unless for loop.last. I love Liquid.js. We will do this like that. Nope. Let me try this again around here. And I'll use a dash. That's a bit better maybe. And we go back and perfect. We have the pages. We have the dashes in between them. And in theory, if I go in here and click, I get the last page of pagination. And what's nice is I just keep adding blog posts. And when Eleventy builds, it just recreates it correctly. And if I decide that 3 is just, that's a little silly, we'll do 5 instead. Save it, go back, and all of a sudden, we should have 5 per page. Yep, look at that. I love it. It is not sorted the way that I like. And we have 4 minutes left. Let's fix this in a little bit more than 4 minutes. So I don't have to worry about it on my blog because I created a custom collection, which is something that Eleventy supports, and that custom collection is already sorted the right way. But they said, let's see, you can do anything in here. You can actually pass this if we switch to JavaScript in the before callback. Yeah, I don't know if I want to do all that. Oh, reverse equals true. Was that it? I knew there was a simple way of doing this. Yeah, boom. Reverse equals true. I knew that was baked in simpler. I like the fact that you have access to a before hook to do really complex stuff, but in theory, that should do it all. Page 1, And then bam, if you remember, I copied all those fourth blog posts. But that's pagination. We did pretty much everything I wanted to except RSS. I could talk about Eleventy forever, but I really want to do something different next session. So I will just tell you that yes, you can do RSS. Eleventy has a rich plugin architecture. Let me find it real quick. Official plugins, RSS. And you basically npm install it and add a couple lines of code. And it will literally create feed.xml for you. So that's really darn easy. And yeah, that's the top of the hour. Let me remove my screen and put my big head on top. Thank you all for showing up. I appreciate it. Again, the source for this, if you want to play with it, will be on Codebreak, my Codebreak GitHub repo. Will be up there in 20 minutes. I'm probably going to take a quick break, walk the dog, etc. But you can find it up there. Have a safe holiday in case I don't see you in the next session. And thank you for your attention, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, y'all.